Welcome back to After the Whistle, everybody. I'm Ryan Blank, and this week I'm joined by Dickinson State Athletic Director and football head coach Pete Stanton. And Coach, thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and knowing that after next year, the North Star seems to be disbanding with a couple of schools leaving, what kind of reaction do you have knowing that the school not just has to leave the North Star, but also has to move to a new conference?
Yeah, we knew the writing was going to be on the wall when not so much when presentation closed, but then Iowa Wesleyan as well, which was another football school, closed, and then once the Waldorf had made the move to the GPAC, then we knew we needed to have an automatic. Six teams for all the sports for an automatic bid to the national tournament, and we knew that was already gone for football, and then was going to be taking place with the other schools, and you needed that stability, which we didn't have, so we knew we needed to make that move to give us the best situation for our program and for our athletes.
Yeah, and you guys are going back to a familiar conference, the Frontier Conference, where the school was in 2013 to 2014. So, what kind of led to that decision to go back to the Frontier Conference?
Well, really for us, geographically, we're 60 miles away from Montana. We have, I think between a third and a fourth of our total athletes are Montana athletes, and having that familiarity with those schools and playing, I believe in our men's and women's basketball and volleyball, we played several of those schools already, and we played them in the non-conference schedule. And football, we played two Frontier schools this year as well, and we compete with them in really all the sports: track, cross country, wrestling. So it was one that made the most sense for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Dixon State is going to compete in all seven sports that are offered, including football and basketball. So being able to go back to a familiar place for the school, but also seems like you said, a lot of athletes are from Montana, just giving them the availability and opportunity to go play in front of their families. What's kind of that added aspect to it?
Oh yeah, it's exciting for them and for their families. When we played out in Billings this year and against Rocky Mountain in football, we had a huge crowd. Probably 1,000 Dickinson State fans at the game, between parents and family members, and a lot of alumni in the area in Montana. A lot of teachers and coaches, administrators out in Montana that are Dickinson State alumni. So it's an exciting thing for them to be able to play actually more of their games there rather than playing, whether it's Nebraska or Wisconsin and things like that, where we have more of our home base.
Yeah, and for you as well, knowing that you're from Baker, Montana. What about you, knowing that you're from Montana? You have a lot of football connections with your family in Montana. What's it like being able to have that opportunity for yourself to go home and compete there as well?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's just like I said, it's a familiarity type of thing, and a lot of our players are from those schools, and we have Baker players on our team. We also have Miles City and Weevil players on our team, and they still have that. They still get the great experience here, and will but yet we'll still be playing in Montana, be playing at home, and I think it's just a neat deal for everyone.
Yeah, and knowing that you guys have that familiarity with the Frontier Conference, but there's also some sports that aren't going to be covered, such as women's wrestling, which DSU added this year. What's kind of the process there to try to get those other sports, including baseball and softball, into their competition, knowing that the Frontier Conference doesn't offer those sports?
Yeah, the baseball, softball is definitely the biggest one. With wrestling, our men's wrestling, we compete in the heart of America right now, and so does our women's wrestling, and we'll most likely stay with that, unless there'd be a school or two that would add men's and women's wrestling. The biggest concern, with softball, baseball, we have, when you look at those two programs, we have over 80 student athletes in those two programs. So really, what we're looking to hope to do there is to have a few others join us eventually from the Dakotas, and give us a little bit more of a scheduling alliance there, because when we were in the Frontier the first time, we were independent, and it was a little more difficult to find games, and we're going to make it work. But what we'd like to do is get a scheduling alliance with the former schools of the North Star, whether it's either a scheduling alliance or affiliate members of the Frontier, whatever it might be. That's our hope with those two sports, to make sure that they have the playing schedule that they should have.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you so much for joining me today. And it'll be interesting to see the last year of the North Star, then you guys jump over to the Frontier in 2025.
Thanks for having me on, Rent.